The girl across the room raised her head, and the look in her eyes stopped my breath. Who is this? I wondered. My God. She was beautiful, with long, heavy braids hanging down the middle of her back, golden skin, and uncertain eyes. People don't like to be stared at when they're frightened, so I looked away to give her some privacy. A minute later, she hunched her back and moaned, once more immersed in what was happening to her body, this process of becoming something new. I wanted to tell her that everything would be okay, but I wasn't sure that it would be. It was hours until dawn, and she was already naked and sweating, pacing heavily around the room. This poor girl was about to have the longest day of her life. As I watched her transform in the mirror in front of me, a story I'd read weeks before flashed through my mind. It seems that there's a tribe in Africa where, the first time a woman leaves home following the confinement period after giving birth, everyone she meets along the road greets her with a sacred song otherwise reserved for warriors returning from battle. She's honored as having lived through a rite of passage that will forever mark her womanhood as abundant and powerful and blessed. She's respected as a fully franchised member of the most ubiquitous and yet most extraordinary group of beings in our collective experience, mothers. There was something about this vision of strength and power and the recognition of worth that went along with it that appealed to me. This archetype of divine motherhood walking alone along the dusty roadside in my mind's eye was someone whose wisdom was innate and whose voice was unmistakable. Her words mattered, so she used them with clarity and purpose. She gave to those around her from the overflow of her spirit, not from the dregs. She had a sensual, arresting beauty all her own. She released the pressure to look like or act like anyone other than herself. The temptation to try to be perfect or have it all together for anyone else's benefit wouldn't even be a temptation for her. She would know how much richer life was on the other side of that lure, where failure might be an option, but living in fear and pretense was not. The desire to know and be loved by this divine mother is intimately familiar, yet somehow she seems so far removed. This is the mother we all think that we have before we get grown and start nitpicking at the humanity of the women we were born to. This is the woman we secretly want to be, even though it very often seems like she doesn't exist. But she does exist. I know. I've seen her. She's been there, no matter how big or small her part, in the face of every pregnant woman and mother I've ever seen look deeply at a child with love. I wanted her face to be my face too. I wanted to allow this woman of purpose, this woman I'd always believed myself to be inside, to emerge from the girl in the mirror. But how? Babies know how to be birthed. Mothers do not always know how to birth themselves. I'd pondered these thoughts for weeks, though not in a serious way. I just loved the idea of being able to magically summon my inner warrior to carry me through the end of pregnancy. As fantasies go, it was really quite enthralling. My body had gotten so enormously awkward that I was barely able to roll out of bed by myself. Under the circumstances, it seemed only fair and fitting that there'd be a trade-off of some kind. Maybe I'd given up gracefulness and freedom and the ability to see my feet, but in return, I would gain access to a mysterious new power within me. This power was destined to rise up and, at just the right moment, give me the strength to conquer any challenge. There was something potent within me waiting to be birthed right alongside the baby curled up in my body. Just like the women in the little African village, I'd summon my warrior and she would kneel down before me without protest, generously offering up her services as midwife, ready to birth me into my new purpose and a higher level of consciousness. It sounded wonderful. However, as another contraction began to swell, I started having some doubts. The face in the mirror lost its subtle glow and turned back into my own familiar, sweating, scrunched-up, agonized face. Struggling to breathe through the panic, I wondered if maybe I'd made a really big miscalculation. It was seriously looking like the warrior goddess I'd been counting on would be a no-show. As a self-described pacifist, read people-pleaser, I may have seemed unworthy to her. But without her, how would I get through this, the birth of my first...